The summer of 1991 had been a rough time for me. You guys may recall that in my Remembering Streets of Rage video that I had broken my leg and required a bunch of surgeries. Streets of Rage had been a huge help getting me through that bad time, but now school was back in, and I was still hobbling around, and I played Streets of Rage so much that I was now ready for something new to take its place as the next big thing. Thankfully, I had good friends all around me that owned the mighty Genesis, and my buddy Chris had not long picked up Road Rash by Electronic Arts. He told me how great it was and how I needed to have it. Chris had always been a pretty good judge of a good game, and rarely did he steer me wrong. He even offered me the game to borrow, which started me on a journey of trying to finish it that has lasted for nearly 30 years. I have to be honest here and tell you that I did not care for this game the first time I played it. The gameplay didn't feel like you were driving a motorcycle on asphalt at all. It felt more like you were slipping and sliding on ice constantly, shooting from one side of the road to the other in a blink of an eye. And good lord, was the music a collection of noises that assaulted the ear with no coherent rhythm. I kept at it though, mainly because I liked the visuals and the theme of the combat racing. Combat racers were nothing new in 1991, but there was something about its environment, its characters, and its art style that I really appreciated. I started to take notice that the characters responded to being attacked during the races. Racers that had tried to be your friend in the beginning turned cold after you hit them. I found out you could buy new bikes that had different stats for speed and handling. Winning races meant you scored money, and if you saved that money, you had access to much better bikes anytime you wanted. I also started to become better at the gameplay. I started to get a feel for the ice-like tracks by anticipating turns more accurately and finding the best lanes in the blind curves that populated each track. Something else had started to happen too. I had begun to really like the music. There is no question that the unorthodox sound was a shock to the ears of someone that first heard it. But there was a really unique flow to every single tune in the game. The more you listened to it, the more sense it made. It was an acquired taste that would become incredibly important to the experience of the game. The setup of Road Rash is really simple. There are 5 tracks that you can race on. Each of these tracks start out around 5 miles long, and you need to place 4th or better to qualify for that track. Once all 5 tracks are qualified, you move on to level 2, where the same 5 tracks are now longer with harder AI opponents that have faster bikes and become more aggressive. Qualify for these 5 tracks and you go on to level 3. Where again the tracks become longer and the AI more difficult. This continues until level 5, where the tracks are now 15 miles long and every imaginable difficulty has been cranked up. There are more cars to wreck you, more cops to catch you, and the AI is fast and ferocious. Where the brakes were optional in the first few levels, you now had to use the brakes often just to stay on the damn track. Since you now had a much faster bike, turns can launch you into trees and oncoming traffic with ease. What had started out as a game that was almost too easy, now had the teeth and claws of a damn honey badger. Defeating a track in 4th place or better on stage 5 is an accomplishment all on its own, but completing all 5 stages on level 5 is something I have not been able to do. That's right, as much as it shames to admit it, I have never been able to defeat Road Rash on my own to see the ending. I have tried countless times over the years, only to see a wrecked or arrested screen time and time again. As frustrating as that is, it's also a clear indication of just how much I love the game that I continue to try. I can always return to its weird music and floaty gameplay and still have fun. I've often questioned myself why this is the case. What's so special about Road Rash to me? I can only guess that it's simply because there's nothing else like it. I mean, think about it for a second. Of the 16-bit era, there is no equivalent to this on any of the rival platforms of the Sega Genesis. There was nothing like Road Rash on the Super Nintendo or TurboGrafx-16. There were, of course, vehicle combat games, but nothing had the look, sound, or feel of Road Rash. You were illegally racing sport bikes on public roads with cops chasing you, all while beating the hell out of the other riders. There was a hook of doing something you really couldn't get away with in the real world, and it worked incredibly well. Road Rash here would of course start one hell of a run for the franchise on the 16-bit Genesis. In late 1992, EA released Part 2 in the series, which had a load of additions and improvements. There's more bikes, more weapons, and even a competitive multiplayer mode. EA would take their dear sweet time getting out Part 3, which didn't hit the Genesis until early 1995. Road Rash would go international in this release, allowing you to race in the UK, Germany, Brazil, and a few more places. It also gave a ton more weapons to choose from, more ways the cops chase you, and even some light RPG elements with the character development. Even the Master System and Game Gear would get in on the Road Rash experience, both receiving a stunningly close conversion of the Genesis original. It's a bit slower, but my god is it impressive for 8-bit hardware. It's the kind of stuff that made you wish that Sega's 8-bit entry had the same success and support the NES had in its run, because I think we could have seen some incredible results if it had. Thinking back to my many hours with Road Rash, I can't help but to smile and think to myself just how much fun this game has been to me over the years. It's provided me not just a racing game, but a racing game that I could take out my frustrations on the other riders should they deserve it. It's also a game that will not give up its ending without one hell of a fight. It was Dark Souls on a motorcycle before anybody knew such a combination could exist. Its truly unique music ties together its visuals, gameplay, and characters in a way that makes it all feel so very different from other 16-bit titles available at the time. That wasn't an easy thing to do in the early 90s, where so many games were some form of platformer that played like so many others. And that's my takeaway here. I got to experience something on the Genesis I couldn't get anywhere else. It kicked my ass, yet I came back for more time and time again. If that isn't the very definition of a great game experience, I don't know what is. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.